Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever you're coming from in the world. Hello and welcome to this CoSpaces Edu Back to School webinar. Thanks for joining me, everyone. Um, Today, I want to share. I got a bunch of things to share with you in terms of like updates and some of my favorite CoSpaces. So let's get started, and appreciate you guys watching live. If you have any comments or questions, or just want to share your own tips and your own CoSpaces, feel free to do that in the chat wherever you're watching from. We are live on Facebook. We're live on Twitter through the CoSpaces channels, and we're also live through my own YouTube channel. So wherever you're watching from, feel free to comment. And we're also going to record this, and it'll be available for rewatching or watching after we're done today. But again, say hi in the chat. Tell us who you are, where are you coming from, and what do you teach? Like how do you use CoSpaces? So let me know in the chat, and I might highlight some of your comments and bring them into the live feed here while I'm talking today. But let's see. I see Ahmad's in there. He was joining a little early today. Thanks for checking in early, Ahmad. Hello, aloha. Macedonia. That's awesome. Welcome, welcome. Let me get my presentation loaded here. All right, guys. Yeah, so I'm coming to you from the CoSpaces Edu channels, and for many of us, for some of us, it's back to school time. I've been back in school for about three weeks now. I think my school starts in late August. I know some schools across the United States are just getting started because they start after the Labor Day holiday. I do know that on the other side of the world, it's not back to school season, but maybe we'll do another back to school for the other half of the world later on this year and next year. But for those of you that are back to school, lots of great resources. For those of you that have been in school for a while, still lots of great resources. I mean, we're using CoSpaces throughout the entire school year. I know I'm using CoSpaces right now with my fifth graders, but they're not new to CoSpaces, so we're doing some pretty complex things. But later in the school year, I'll be starting CoSpaces with my fourth graders. And so the things I'm going to show you in today's webinar, I'm definitely going to be using later in the school year. So there's definitely things you could use whenever. But let's get started. A little introduction about me. So why am I talking to you about this? I'm a guru, CoSpaces Edu guru ambassador. I've been using CoSpaces Edu since before they were an Edu product. They were just CoSpaces quite a few years ago. And when I came across CoSpaces as an AR VR creation tool, I jumped right in. I was working with a high school literature class, and we were recreating scenes from To Kill a Mockingbird. That was my first CoSpaces project. And now they're a full EDU product. It's something I continue to use now in my design and technology class. We use it a lot for coding as well. It's a great way to introduce coding to students. But by day, I serve as a K-6 design and technology teacher. But I've also developed lesson plans for CoSpaces. I've created CoBlocks tutorials. I created an entire CoSpaces curriculum for the Games for Change organization. And if you're on the Facebook group, you probably see me quite a bit in there. I'm a moderator for the group, and I'm always sharing and trying to support our users over there as well. So I've got lots of experience with CoSpaces. It is my favorite AR VR creation tool above all others. I love it. When I get my students started with it, they absolutely love it. When I get my fifth graders, when I get my fifth graders going with CoSpaces again at the beginning of each year, they're so excited to get back to this tool. They absolutely love it. And I think I love it most because even though I might be doing a specific project with my students who have used CoSpaces quite a bit before, so many of them want to do more. They want to like build their own CoSpaces, create their own games. And it's a great tool for that. And I of course, let them. I create a separate class. I call it Fun Stuff, and I invite those students that are interested in creating extra things into that extra class. And I've been sharing lots of great projects that I haven't taught my students how to create. These are some crazy elaborate things that my kids are coming up with on their own, and it's a great tool for that. My students love it. And they take off with it. Hi Vesna, welcome. Again, if you're just tuning in, say hi in the chat. Let me know where you're from. I'd love to know what you teach. How are you using CoSpaces? So yeah, share that stuff in the chat. I might highlight some comments in the live feed here today as we continue through the webinar. But that's a little bit about me. And here's what I'm gonna share with you today. So we're gonna start with all the great updates that CoSpaces Edu released just last month. Some great new updates. I'll share all of them with you. I might demo a couple of them just to help you better understand what they are. And then we'll get into two of my favorite CoSpace projects that I use to help my students learn how to use CoSpaces and how to get them started with it. So the first one will be the Welcome to CoSpace project. And then the second one will be the All About Me project. And as part of this webinar, I'll share the codes to example or templates, CoSpace templates that you can use in your class. You can remix them, make adjustments to them, use them however you see fit. But I'll share some codes, some share codes with you for those CoSpaces. You can remix them and use them yourselves. And then we're gonna visit very briefly the CoSpaces Edu Getting Started resources page. There's some really great resources on the CoSpaces website that I want to point in your direction, especially for any of you that are new to this. There's lots of support, lots of great stuff to help get you started. And then I'm going to highlight. I like to start this trend with our webinars. I'm going to highlight a CoSpace tonight. I want to give it the spotlight. Share with you one of my favorite CoSpaces from the gallery, and maybe hopefully this will be something I'll continue to do either in webinars or in the Facebook group. But we'll highlight a CoSpace at the end of our webinar today. And then if you haven't started using CoSpaces yet, or if you're on the edge and you want to give it a try, I'll share my pro trial code with you so that you can give CoSpaces Edu Pro a try for 30 days. You might hear my dog snorting back there. But yeah, so that's our plan for today. Let's get started. So let's take a look at what updates were released back in August, just a couple of weeks ago. Quite a few updates, including a really big update, a great new feature that was added to CoSpaces for all of us. So let's take a look at what's new in CoSpaces. So the first update that was announced was support for Pico headsets. So let me know in the chat if you guys use Pico headsets. These are VR headsets that you could purchase from the Pico company. Some really great products, and CoSpaces released an app in the Pico Enterprise Store that allows you to use CoSpaces in their headsets. So these are the three devices that are supported with CoSpaces Edu. So Pico 4e, the Pico G3, and the Neo 3 headset. So if you're looking to get into purchasing headsets, this is one good option. I've heard some really great things about Pico. I don't personally use Pico, but I've heard great things about it. And now there's a CoSpaces Edu app for these headsets. So that's a great update that just came out in August. Here's the biggest update of them all for August. I'm sharing it with you. Second is support for uploading our own animated 3D objects. So in CoSpaces there's the object library, and many of the objects there have animations. But if you're into creating your own 3D models and giving them animations outside of CoSpaces, there's now support to upload 3D models into CoSpaces that come with different animations now. And there are two file formats that CoSpaces will accept currently. That's the FBX and the GLTF formats. There's a really great tutorial video in the Facebook group by one of our really great CoSpacers that kind of breaks down the steps with using an Adobe tool called Mixamo, I think it's called. I don't know if you put it Mixamo, which is a free Adobe tool that has a library of 3D models and a library of animations that you can pair together. And then with that Adobe tool, you can download those models and then upload them into CoSpaces. So there's some really great tools out there to help with this. But this is a really exciting new feature, the ability for our users, our students, to create their own animated 3D models and then use them in CoSpaces. So this is really great for that. Really exciting new feature. And CoSpaces has, they said they're going to continue to build upon this and update it as more people use this new feature, and as they learn from it and learn how we use this new feature, they're going to improve upon it. So there's certainly more to come. I think it's a really great new feature. Next, a couple new languages were added to CoSpaces. So we now have support for Turkish and Bulgarian languages in CoSpaces, which you can change the language, I think, in your account, in your profile settings, to whichever language you prefer. So there's 2 new languages added to CoSpaces there. Another great update. And then this is a really good one, really interesting one. I know teachers have been asking for this one, the ability to kind of control whether students can use the built-in web search or not. And now that's possible. So at the teacher level, there is a control in the teacher settings to disable web search for your students, your student accounts. So disabling web search will remove that feature from their CoSpaces. They will not be able to use the built-in web search. Now that doesn't prevent them from using web search outside of CoSpaces. And in any web browser, hopefully your school has filters in place for that. But yeah, so this feature is now available. So disabling web search in CoSpaces for students if you don't want them to be able to use it. And sometimes, I don't, especially when we're getting started with CoSpaces, I don't want them to go down the rabbit hole of looking for images and GIFs in a CoSpace. I want them to focus on what's available to them already in CoSpaces, get familiar with the CoSpaces library before we even begin to look at how do we get images and videos and GIFs and things like that in there. So being able to disable that for like the getting started project, I think is a great option for me. Hopefully it is for you. Hello, Federica from Italy. Welcome. Thanks for joining me live today. We're just going through some new updates to CoSpaces that were released back in August, and I'm about halfway through here. Another great new update is they added more answer options to the quiz co-block. So I'm not sure what it was before, but when I checked as I was setting up this presentation, you can now, currently you can add up to 6 answer choices in the quiz panel in co-blocks. You see an example there on the screen. So that is the max number of answer choices. And again, I'm not sure what it was before, but I guess they updated that block to allow for up to 6 now. So, if you're creating quizzes and you want to give your viewers or your audience up to 6 possible choices to choose from, that's now possible. And of course, you choose which one is the correct answer. You see a correct answer there. And then you can decide what happens when they're correct or when they're incorrect by adding additional co-blocks to those pockets down below. But that's another update that came out for CoSpaces as well. So giving some more options to the quiz panel. And then for our Korean users, I guess there's a single sign-on tool called Naver, or Naver. I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but apparently it's a popular Korean single sign-on platform that they use. And so CoSpaces added support for using that as a way for students to sign in to CoSpaces. Okay, so looking at new single sign-on options there. And then two new co-blocks were added to CoSpaces. These are debug co-blocks. And so one is called the print co-block, which you see on the left there, and the other one is called the comment co-block. So we're adding a new category of blocks to co-blocks called debug blocks. I'm going to demonstrate this for you here. Let me switch screens. So here we're in my CoSpaces account. And I want to show you what these two blocks look like and what they do, especially for those of you that might be using co-blocks quite a bit with your students. And students are learning how to program and possibly use variables and things like that. So I've got a CoSpace here. This is the template for the parkour that CoSpaces provides us. And in this, I'll play it really quick. In this CoSpace, you have a lives counter down here, and this is using a variable to track how many lives are the player has left. So if I fall in, I have 2 lives left. But let's say you're testing this out, and you want to see how many lives you have left without displaying it on the screen. The print co-block does that. It'll allow you to display the variable in the co-blocks panel over here without having to see it on the screen. So you can test things out and see if that variable is working correctly. So you see here, as I fall in, the variable changes, but it's showing me it's printing out that number on the inside the co-blocks panel here. And so that's what the print block does. It's meant to print out or to display the variable in the panel while you're testing things out. And you can see it here. So this is the print block, and I'm printing my lives variable. And then the other, this is coming from the debug library here. And the other new debug block is the comment block. This is very common among programming tools, the ability for programmers to insert comments into their program. And this block doesn't affect the program in any way. It's like writing a note. It's like squeezing a note inside your program to remind you about what you're doing here. So like, for example, here I wrote myself a note about what this print block is supposed to do. And the only person who sees this is the creator, right? So they can come back to their code later on and read their comments to remember where they left off or to remember what that sequence of blocks is meant to do. So it's a great way for students to track what they're doing in their code. It might also be a great tool for the teacher to insert comments into the program, right? So as a teacher, you can go into any student's CoSpace and check their work at any time, even while they're working. Yeah, you can go in and track their progress live. But the comment tool might be a great opportunity for the teacher to insert a question or a comment about their program or about their CoSpace, maybe at the top of the program, or maybe you create like a separate co-blocks workspace here, and you could call this like, we'll call this like teacher comments, right? And then I can insert my comments into the comment block here. So I think that might be a great opportunity for the teacher to provide feedback to students within a CoSpace. But two great new debugging blocks that were added to CoSpaces here. Let me know what you think about that in the chat, guys. Okay, back to presentation. So again, 2 new debug co-blocks, brand new co-blocks category called debug, and 2 great new blocks that were added to it. All right, so that's the end of the updates for August. Some great new updates again, especially I think the most popular, most exciting update is the ability to upload our own 3D models with animations into CoSpaces now. So give that a try. And again, as I mentioned earlier, there's a great video tutorial posted in the Facebook group by one of our amazing CoSpacers who breaks down a process for using an Adobe tool to do that, a free Adobe tool called Mixamo. That allows you to create animated models, and then you could download those and upload them into CoSpaces. So give that a try. Check it out. Okay, so that's updates are wrapped. Let's move on and talk about my favorite ways to get my students started with CoSpaces. I'm going to share with you 2 CoSpace projects that I use when my students when they start learning how to use CoSpaces themselves. And the first CoSpace that we use to learn how to use CoSpaces is the Welcome to CoSpaces CoSpace. So when your students create an account for the first time, they're actually given this CoSpace in their playground, I think. Let me see if I have it in mind. Um, Probably. No, I'm sorry. I don't, because I've organized my stuff. But typically when I have students in here? Yeah. No, I don't. Shoot. But again, when a student creates a new account in their playground, they'll have a Welcome to CoSpace project that they can play around in. But I actually don't use that one. I've I've taken that template, that Welcome to CoSpace template, and I've tweaked it a little bit, added a few extra things in there to help my students really, give them opportunities to really play and learn and explore the tool. And so let me show you what my version of this Welcome to CoSpace looks like. It was shared earlier this week in my social media takeover of the CoSpaces Facebook account and Twitter account. I shared a quick video about it, and I shared the share codes to it, but I'm going to show you now in the webinar. So I have a folder that I keep all this organized in. And at my school, we're a one-to-one iPad school, so we use CoSpaces on the iPads. So I've actually created two versions of this Welcome to CoSpace. I have an iPad version or a mobile-friendly version, depending on what kind of mobile devices you use. And then I have a PC version, which is a version for computers. So maybe you use it on MacBooks or Chromebooks or Windows computers. This PC version is for those kind of devices. But this is the Welcome to CoSpace project, and so this is the first CoSpace my students experience. So I'll show you the iPad version here, and then I'll jump into the PC version. So so in this CoSpace, this is the first scene, and this first scene, students aren't really meant to do anything here. This is just an introduction. And it says the first step is to navigate to the next scene. So the 3D arrows here kind of direct them up to the scene button, where we want to navigate to the next scene, which really gets into how to use CoSpaces. So in this first scene, not much is meant to happen here. They're not creating anything in this space. It's just directing them to the very important scene selector. And then I instruct them to go to scene 2. So scene 2 is titled iPad Navigation. And what this does is it teaches them how to use their fingers to navigate or to move around in a CoSpace while they're editing. And there are several different finger movements in CoSpaces for the iPad. Hello from Croatia. Welcome. I'm just demoing the Welcome to CoSpace project for introducing CoSpaces to students. Welcome. Thanks for joining me live. So it's a 3D scene, right? And we can move around. And this is the iPad version. It tells them how to use their fingers. So rotating with 2 fingers will orbit the scene. I'm not actually on a computer using a mouse, but I think you should be able to get the idea here. Touching and dragging 1 finger to move, right? So being able to move forward and backwards and left and right. And then pinching with 2 fingers to zoom in and out. And I like this particular part, because if you look very carefully here, I don't know if you can see it on the screen, but there is a tiny little object there. And so I challenge my students to can you zoom in close enough to see what that object is? And tell me in the chat if you can figure out what that object is there. Let's see if I can zoom in. See if you can tell what that is. What is that in the chat down there, guys? Let me know in the comments. But a great little challenge there for kids to practice using the zoom feature to figure out what that is down there. Can you zoom in close enough to tell what that object is? And for those of you that might be familiar with CoSpaces, maybe you can very, very quickly and easily tell what that might be. Hello, Mona from Egypt. Hello. Okay, let me get back out here, zoom out. And then on the last side, there's the drag with 2 fingers to do the tilting, right? So the idea here is they're not building yet. right? They're not accessing the library or changing the environment. Um, but when you get started in CoSpaces, you have to be able to know how to navigate around a 3D environment. And for those that have never used a tool like this before, that can take some time, right? It's something that might not get used to right away. But if they, if they play like Minecraft and Roblox and all those popular 3D environment games, they might pick up on this pretty quickly with their fingers or a mouse, depending on what tool they're on. But once we've um, played around in this scene for a little bit, practicing navigating, then we move on to scene 3, which is all about object manipulation. So now here we get into what we can do with the 3D objects that are available to us in CoSpaces. What's possible with them? What can we do with these things? How can we manipulate them and change them to fit our own design? Okay, so when we get started, we're presented with the basic object controls. So these 4 controls are the ones you see when you click on an object. So same 4 here. And then it explains what they do and how to use them. Um, and so for each side of this CoSpace, they have a challenge. They're challenged to use one of the features to figure out how to solve the problem here. So this tiger is upside down, and it says, "Can you rotate me around, please?" And so using the rotation tool, figuring out which axis to rotate on to help that tiger correct its position. And then once they're done with that, they rotate around. So they're practicing their navigation skills here. And when they get here, they learn about the material setting. How can I make the bear a different color? Because it's blue right now. And then on this side, they learn how to duplicate objects, right? So double tapping on an object and using the duplicate option um, to create an exact copy of something is extremely helpful, especially when you're building like fences, or you're creating like a garden or a grassy field where you need to use one specific object a lot. The duplication feature is really great for that. So they learn how to duplicate. And then over here, I think for me personally, like this is probably one of the most important tools they're going to learn how to use in CoSpaces, which is the attach tool. How do they bring 2 or more objects together in order to further manipulate those objects? And in this example, we're using the attach feature to get the boy here on the back of the horse, so that it simulates the boy riding the horse rather than floating. And for usually in the very beginning, students want to like try to manually move that character, and it's not always perfect, right? It might be a little off, it's a little crooked, the rotation is not lined up correctly. And so that's what the attach tool is for. So they learn that by attaching, right, we get two perfectly aligned objects that again simulate riding the horse. And so they learn the basics of attaching, um, and then that's something they can apply to future projects. And then the last challenge here is the library. So now they finally get to explore the library. What is available in the library? And so here the lady is asking them to find a cat in the library. So they're able to open the library. And then we talk briefly about the categories, like where would I find a cat? I would find it in the animals. And then I'm looking for the cat. Right. And then I tell the students, you can change the color of the cat. It doesn't have to be a black cat. It could be any color you want. You could put it in the chair. You could put it next to her. So here, what's really cool is they're learning how to use the library, but then they're applying these other skills: changing color, rotating, moving objects, maybe even attaching the cat to the top of the chair so it's sitting nicely in that chair there. Right. So they're challenged to kind of combine different features and tools together to complete this scene here. Get rid of that cat. Okay, so that's the object manipulation, and then they move on to camera and play. So what is this blue camera that's floating around? That's kind of floating midair in the scene. And when I'm done building, how do I test it? How can I see? How can I experience it as a player? And so in this scene, they're introduced to that. So we see the camera object here. There we go. And it introduces them to the play button. and the ability to double tap the camera to make changes to it. And so this is where I've made a slight tweak to this scene. So this is not what I've done to this scene is not in the original Welcome to CoSpace. So I've added a little bit of programming and a special experience for my students here to kind of introduce the idea of being able to program, actions, and interactions within a CoSpace. So when they press play, they get the information about the camera. This is how you view, and this is how you move. There's 4 modes to the camera. So this is all the default stuff. I didn't create this, right? But I tell my students what you want to look for when you're done is a way to launch the rocket into space. And if you look over there, there's 2 controllers over there inviting you to come help them launch the rocket. So they learn how to use the arrows to move around. And if they go inside the control room, there is a launch button on the ground here. And I don't know if the sound's going to work. It might be too loud. You may or may not hear it. But what I've programmed here, you can see it in the code, is this sequence that has hidden the clouds, the smoke. And when the launch button is clicked, we're going to play a sound. And then we're going to reveal the clouds and the fire, and the rocket will move up into space here. So when I click it, let's see. Let me know if you can hear that in the chat. But there we go. So I pulled a sound file from the internet of the launch of the Space Shuttle Discovery, and I've used that as the sound for this rocket sequence, and then I programmed the rocket to launch up into space there. So just giving them a little bit of exposure to like what programming can do for your projects. Like these things are possible. Everything doesn't have to be set and stationary and sort of frozen. You can create animation and movement. You can incorporate sound. So again, so an opportunity to expose them to those opportunities that we'll explore in future projects. So that's something I've added to this particular project. And then once they get through scenes 2, 3, and 4, then the last scene is also something that I've added myself. But this is, what do I do when I'm done? Like, what can I do? Can I play around? Can I make my own things? And so in this scene, this is their opportunity to play and explore. Because I feel like, students, when you introduce students to a new tool, they need that time to play. I don't just jump right into, okay, let's start making this project, guys. They need an opportunity to play and have fun and explore and make mistakes and learn how to fix those mistakes, and learn how to enjoy the tool, so that as we do move into more serious projects, they have fun with it and they have experience with it. So in this last scene 5, it's the create your dream house scene. And here they're challenged to use any objects from the library to create their dream house. And they can build, I tell them, you can build on the inside of the house, you can build on the outside, create a garden, create whatever you want. Put this on the moon if you want, change the environment. Learn what other features are available that we didn't get to explore in the previous scenes. And then what's cool is, like, when we get into other projects later on, maybe they finish one aspect of that project and they're waiting to move on to the next thing. They ask, can I go back and play in my dream house while I wait? And I yeah, sure, go for it. So this is a scene that my students often come back to when they're in the middle of other projects, just to continue to play and have fun and build their dream house. And so they're given this house template, and they ask, like, can I move the walls? Can I divide this into 2 more rooms? Can I make a second floor? And these are all great questions. Like, can I do these things? And my answer is always, yeah, go for it. Try to put a roof on there. Try to build a second floor. What do you need to do to accomplish that? And so it's a great opportunity to challenge their thinking and their creativity in CoSpaces. And so this again, it's it's the fifth scene that I've added to this Welcome to CoSpace to give them an opportunity to play. And play again is extremely important, I think, in a tool like this. Um, so yeah, so this is the iPad version, and then I can briefly show you the PC version. So the PC version is a little different because controls are different. So they have a desktop navigation scene, which teaches you how to use the mouse, right, and rotate around, learning different mouse and keyboard shortcuts. Um, so they have this, and then there's the object manipulation, which is fairly similar, but then it's showing them like keyboard shortcuts as well. Here we go. So most of it's the same. At least for this one, they have again a keyboard shortcut for attaching versus only being able to access the attach option from the menu here. Change that, and then again, and then there's all the same additional things. But depending on what device you use, I have two versions of this, right? So there's the iPad version, and then the PC version. Let me get back to. There we go. Just gotta reset these for you guys. Okay, let me know if you guys have any questions in the chat. I'm interested to see what you're thinking. Thanks everyone for checking in. A couple of you from Egypt. Welcome, welcome. Back to this. So this is the Welcome to CoSpace. This is the first CoSpace that I use to introduce my students to CoSpace. This is the first project that they do when they're first time users. And if you're interested in using this particular CoSpace project, these are the share codes. There's the iPad version, and there's the computer version, and remixing is turned on for these two CoSpaces. So if you're a pro user, you can make a copy of these CoSpaces and then use them with your students. And let me know how it goes. I think this is it's been very successful for me in introducing students. I feel like it gives them a really good understanding and a good grasp of the concepts and opportunities that CoSpaces offers them. And then they love being able to build in the dream house space. Okay, so moving on to the next CoSpace project that I use with my students. Once we're done with the Welcome to CoSpace, we move on to the All About Me. And there's two versions of this. This is another great CoSpace project that continues to strengthen their skills in CoSpaces, but also add more creativity to the scene. And it's like a virtual All About Me poster board project, right, where they're introducing themselves to the class while using CoSpaces and learning how to use CoSpaces to build it. Okay, so let me switch back to my CoSpaces account here, and I've got a folder for this. And as I mentioned a couple seconds ago, there are two main versions of this. There is the VR version, like the virtual reality version, where they're building within the three-dimensional space, and then you can share it, and your audience can explore it virtually. And then there is the Merge Cube version of this. So the first one, I'll show you my example here. This is the VR version, and so what they're presented with is a template with these sort of this like three-dimensional poster board here, and this is my teacher version, but there is a student version. So they kind of talk a little bit about themselves and their family here, and in the middle they learn how to. So this is where they learn how to upload images of themselves or other things, so they can put a picture of themselves here. They learn that process. That's something new that they learn in this project, how to use the image library, or not the image library, but how to upload images and then use those images in CoSpaces. And then this box here is talks to them about oops, brought that down a little bit. Talks to them about or they share more about themselves, about like what they did during the summer and stuff. And then over here in my favorites is another great simple introduction to coding. So the way this works is we have these panels with categories, and on the back of those panels are their answers. So they learn how to change these text boxes. And then the program's already I think for me, what I typically do is I give them the program for two of the panels. So like fave one and fave two. And then they learn how to duplicate or drag the co-blocks in from the library to create the programs for the rest of the panels, right? So this is an introduction to co-blocks. And basically what's happening is when you click on one of these panels, the panel rotates to reveal the answer on the back. So if I go to play and I test this out, so I'll look over here, click on animal, rotates to reveal the answer. So some really simple programming here, but a great way to kind of get their feet wet. Get a little introduction into actually programming something to happen. In this case, interaction, giving your audience the ability to interact with the CoSpace. Okay, so we have the panel there. And then beyond that, once they're finished with the main components here, the text boxes and all that, then they're invited to decorate, right? They can change the animals. They can give the animals speech bubbles. They have to recreate themselves as a CoSpaces character here. So they can use the character library to find one that closely resembles themselves. And what's great about that is they learn that, when you pull a person in, there's lots of options, right? Like it doesn't have to be blue shirt, red pants. The hair doesn't have to be what is that, black. They have control over all those colors, right? And then depending on what the person is wearing, right? This person's wearing a hoodie. Not different characters are wearing different clothing now, so they learn that you can't change the clothing on a character, but you can pick a character that has clothing that might be similar to what you typically wear, what you enjoy wearing. So they learn how to choose a character and try to customize it to look as close to resemble them as closely as possible. Place it in there, and then beyond that, they're welcome to explore the environment. They can change the environment, the effects, so they play around with those settings as well. And then they're welcome to add more decorations around the scene. And like one thing I know, like a lot of kids end up asking is, can I like make my character ride a bike? Can I put them on a skateboard? And my answer is always yeah, but you got to figure out how do you bring those two objects together? And so then it's challenging them to think back to, how does that attach tool work? And they might need some reminders, but being able to do that is a great way to really bring the scene to life and really showcase who they are as an individual. And then some students ask about the animations. Can I use these animations? Can I make these things can I choose one? And yeah, of course you can. Right, the more movement you have in a scene, the more realistic and engaging it is. So this is the virtual version of the All About Me. And then if you're a pro user and you've purchased the Merge Cube add-on to your seats, then there is a Merge Cube version of this, which my students absolutely love doing because it uses the physical Merge Cube and they're able to share these with their classmates. So it's the same concept, right? The All About Me project, but it's placing it on the Merge Cube. My Merge Cube is invisible back there. But it placing them on the Merge Cube. Let me undo that. Put that back. Okay. And then once they play it, then you can either explore this virtually, or you can get the real Merge Cubes, and then they can use a Merge Cube and share their CoSpace with each other. But again, it's the same concept. They're learning how to insert images. They put a person on the top, and then the questions are a little different for this one. So it's like, when I grow up, I want to be. There's some programming here as well. The programming is a little different, but for this one, there's categories, and in the code, they learn how to set the text of something. So by default, get over there, the text are question marks, right? But then through co-blocks, they can change those question marks to the words to reveal the answers, right? And that's when the panel is clicked, set the text of that panel to the answer. Okay, so the way this works is if I go to the back here and I hover my mouse, I'm able to select it. You see there, and that sets the text to my answer. So the programming is different in this scene. It's not the same as the other version, but it's still an opportunity to teach students some basic programming techniques to create an interactive element in their CoSpace. It's a great way to get their feet wet again. So what I usually do is I'll in the template, I'll have the first sequence here for the animal panel, and then they have to create the second one and the third one. Okay, so they can either learn how to duplicate this sequence of blocks, or they can find the blocks in the library, the same blocks, and then drag them in, and then learn how to make the necessary changes to the block. So very basic programming, but again, a great way to introduce it to them. And so this is the merge cube version of All About Me. Where are we at on time? Okay, good on time. Again, let me know if you guys have questions put them in the comments. If you have general comments or ideas or anything you want to share, feel free to throw it in the chat, and I might highlight some of your comments in a little bit. But yeah, this is the All About Me project. This is like the second project that my students do when they're first learning how to use CoSpaces. And again, there's the VR version and the Merge Cube version. I have a couple of templates. I have like a teacher one that I create myself as an example to share with my students. And then there's the presentation template that my students use when it's their turn. It's going to take a while to load here. There we go. Okay, so yeah, here we go. This is a little more. This is the student version. So they share a little bit about their family. They fill in the middle blocks. This year I'm most looking forward to, and then they set the answers to their favorites on the right side here, and then they can continue to decorate and add in animations and all kinds of stuff. Okay, so that is the All About Me project, and just like with the Welcome to CoSpace, there are the share codes for the VR version and the Merge Cube version. They are set to remixable. So if it's something you want to use, feel free to use those share codes in CoSpaces and remix them, and you can make adjustments to it and set them up as assignments for your students. If you're not sure, if you're brand new to this, you're not really sure how the share code. I'm saying share code. You might have no idea what I'm actually talking about. But what I mean by the share code here, this 6-letter code. So I'm just going to remember this PWEQCN. What I mean by that is if you go up to the very top in your CoSpace account to this hand up here, that asks for a share code. And then you punch in that code, PWEQCN. And if the code is correct, it'll load that CoSpace for you into the play screen. And then as I mentioned a couple seconds ago, this is remixable. So if you're in a pro account, you can remix, which basically means you're making a copy of it in your own CoSpace library. So if you want to use this template or you want to hold on to it for later, definitely remix it if you're logged into your CoSpace account, and then you'll have your own version of it. Okay, there we go. Okay, back to here. Okay, so moving on in the webinar. Yes, okay, so now that I've shared two great sort of getting started CoSpaces with you, hopefully you find some use out of those. Let me share some resources with you. So the CoSpaces website itself has some really great resources that for both you as the teacher and for your students as well, that I think would come in very handy for getting started. So I'm going to jump back, switch over to the website here. So the CoSpaces website, CoSpaces.io, is the web URL, and there's a tab at the top called Resources, and they've actually got it organized into several different categories. We have a Getting Started category, we have a Lessons Plan page, training for becoming a CoSpaces Pro user, which is the paid version of CoSpaces, some extra goodies, and a page full of just different kinds of project ideas. So I want to show you the getting started page and just bring your attention to some really great resources here. You might not, maybe you're not familiar, maybe you don't go to the website very often other than to just log into CoSpaces, but the getting started page is full of great stuff. So what we have here are some downloadable PDFs. One is the educator kit, the getting started kit. So it's kind of breaks down all the basics of what you would need to do to get started with CoSpaces. Great downloadable. You can print this out. There's a 30-day pro trial code there. But in this kit, you have instructions on how to register, instructions on how to create CoSpaces and explore. There's some great checklists that you can use for yourself as the teacher and the student. Some tutorials, a keyboard, shortcuts, cheat sheet, and then even some student certificates. So there's, scroll down here. There's a certificate here. There we go. That you could download and print for your students once maybe they create a really awesome project, or they learn how to do something really amazing in CoSpaces and they shared it with the class. You could give them a certificate for that. So I think a really great downloadable, printable resource there. But beyond that, there's some really great ideas and tutorials and tips shared throughout this really detailed getting started guide. So that's one really great resource. They have a student handbook. So this is something you might want to consider, printing out and putting on a table as a shared resource for students. Just kind of breaks down the different features and tools, checklists for the students. And then probably the most useful thing is the keyboard shortcuts for the editor mode if you're working on a computer. And then there's the mobile shortcuts here. So how to use the finger movements and stuff again. So these are things you can download and use with your students. And then they have, if you just want the shortcuts, the keyboard shortcuts, there's a separate download for that. And then for teachers, a really great VR best practices guide. So some great recommendations here for how to successfully implement VR into your classroom alongside this great tool called CoSpaces. So right off the top there, really great downloadable content there. And then below that are some really great video tutorials. So, these are some of these videos I often use at the start of a project. Like at the beginning of that Welcome to CoSpace, I'll show, like the getting started for students video, just as a way to kind of engage them and get them excited about what this new tool is that they're learning. So there's some really great videos there. And then for teachers, there's a free online course that you can take to learn the basics to help yourself become more comfortable with CoSpaces. So there's a great online course that you can take. And then information about the lesson plans that are available. So this is a separate page, but clicking that will take you to a page full of lesson plans and project ideas. There's some great ones here already kind of listed on here. Some great ideas for other projects your students could work on. This is actually one of my projects here featured here. This is the class introductions to AR. So creating your own merge cube introduction to your class. More great lesson plans, other great introductory videos. These are great like step-by-step videos. I actually use the simulations video for my Floor is Lava parkour challenge project. And this video here breaks down the steps for that. It's a great video. Yeah, and so students use that to help them. And then beyond that, opportunities to connect with other ambassadors if you need to find an expert and connect with them. Links to the Facebook group or the Facebook community, and then a link to the CoSpaces Edu online forum. So again, great resource page here. From the top, it's resources, getting started. And so if you're looking for, tutorials or tips or help on feeling more comfortable with the tool before you get your students involved in it, this is a great place to start. So feel free to check that out. Tap into all these great resources. Okay. And then last, I want to highlight, so this is my CoSpace Spotlight moment. I want to highlight one in particular CoSpace from the gallery that I want to share with all of you. And this one comes from the CoSpaces team. It's actually one of my favorites. It's called the Arctic Base Escape Room. And it's a great example of creating an escape room style experience using CoSpaces and CoBlocks. So this one, the code is here, FKJVHB. And I'm not gonna play through the whole thing for you guys, but I'll just show you what it looks like in case you want to go try it out yourself. I've seen there's lots of great examples of escape rooms in the CoSpaces gallery, but this one by the CoSpaces team is by far my most favorite. It's called Arctic Base Escape Room. It's remixable, so you or your students could remix it and kind of dive into the CoBlocks and see how everything is connected and how we build a sequence of events that allows someone to escape out of this experience. So when you get in here first, you want to look for things that you can click on, right? So I can't get out the door, it's locked. I need to find another way out. And the bed doesn't do anything. Can't really get up there. I can move the chair. Chair doesn't really reveal anything. I got this book here. A book, I can't see anything special about it. That doesn't really work. But if you notice, ooh, there's a little pocket. Oh, I'm not even showing you guys. Sorry. Let me backtrack here. I forgot to switch my screens. There, here's the Arctic Base Escape Room. My apologies, guys. But the way this works here is, certain things are clickable. If I click this chair, I'm moving it out of the way to reveal a little opening in the floor. And if I click on that, I can escape to the next room. And from here, I want to look for the next sequence of events. Oh, sorry about that. So the plug, I can plug in. Ooh, there's a little security camera there showing me the police officer that's waiting outside. See a key on there. But yeah, this is a really great example of an escape room. I'm going to get out of here because I think it's lagging me out. There we go. But that's called Arctic Base Escape Room. And again, really great example of how we can create these escape room style games in CoSpaces, designing them and then programming the interactive components. How can we cause objects to move like that? What does clicking on the key do? What does that allow me to do next? And thinking about like the sequence of events that can lead a player through this type of game. So that's my CoSpace Spotlight called Arctic Base Escape Room by the CoSpaces team. If you just search escape room in the gallery, tons and tons of really great escape room projects there. But feel free to check that one out if that's that's a really cool project for students to get involved in creating their own escape rooms. And we're about to wrap things up here. So what I wanted to share with you is if you're brand new to CoSpaces, if you're just getting started, if you're not really sure what's possible, before you even consider purchasing pro licenses for you and your students, give it a try first. And CoSpaces offers a really great opportunity to do that by using a 30-day pro trial code. And I've got my own here. It's cost Michael FR, but there's a tool in CoSpaces that allows you to insert a trial code. And what that does is it'll unlock 30 days for you to be a pro user. And it gives you the ability to add up to 99 students to your teacher account and give them pro access as well. And this pro trial includes the Merge Cube add-on. So 30 days, I mean, typically most products give you 7 days or a week or something, but to get a whole month to try out this amazing tool, so I think that's way more than enough time to do at least one solid project to really see if it's something you want to continue to use. So feel free to use that trial code. It gives you 30 days of pro and up to 99 students pro, as well as the Merge Cube add-on for completely free. You don't have to enter a credit card. You don't have to do any of that. You just plug in the trial. It gives you pro access. And then at the end of that 30-day trial, the pro access is removed, but you can decide even before then if you want to purchase CoSpaces. So feel free to use that trial code. You can share it if you want to as well with your colleagues at your schools. Anybody is able and allowed to use that trial code. And all right, we are at the end of our back to school webinar, guys. I really want to thank all of you for tuning in live. Thank you so much for participating. I appreciate all of you in the chat saying hi from all over the world. And if you're watching the recording, thank you for tuning in. I hope you were able to learn something. I hope you were able to take some great tips and ideas away with you for your venture into CoSpaces. But until next time, enjoy the rest of your day wherever you are, and happy CoSpacing, everyone. Take care.